Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first part of our early River Valleys notes presentation. We are ready to roll, so here we go. So, as we mentioned in our previous unit, our background, if you will, or the beginning of the early river valleys goes back to our Neolithic age. This is where our ancestors were migrating and eventually settled down along these river valleys in order to begin farming. So, again, with these river valleys, it's going to provide our our ancestors the ability to farm because of the rich topsoil known as silt. It'll also give our ancestors a source of protection, especially if they use the river as a border. And then we will also see it eventually being used as a route for trade and or transportation. So again, these river valleys are super important. And again, the rich topsoil, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, is definitely a benefit of living in these river valleys. So the four main river valleys are the Sumerian or Mesopotamian civilization, which can be found along the Tigris Euphrates rivers. This would be located also in Southwest Asia, what is modern day Iraq or Middle East. We will also look at the Egyptian civilization, also known as Egypt, along the Nile River. This includes the Delta, which is where the Nile dumps into the Mediterranean, and this can be found in northeastern Africa. The Indian civilization is developed and found along the Indus River Valley in southern Asia, which we'll talk more about that civilization in SOL 4. And another one that we'll talk about in SOL 4 is our Chinese civilization, which is found on the Honghe River, also known as the Yellow River. Make sure you have that in your notes, that the Honghe River is also known as Yellow, and that's Eastern Asia. So on this map in class, we went through and we color coordinated the rivers as well as the civilization. So this long river here, please make sure it's labeled as the Nile. The little V area up here is the Delta. And because this is the Nile, the civilization here is Egypt. Over here, you have two rivers. This one on the left or the western part is the Euphrates, and the one on the east or the right is the Tigris. Think alphabetically E T, or you think of that 1980s film E.T. as well. So that will help you there. This will be Mesopotamia, this area that's between the rivers, and that's what the name Mesopotamia means, the land between the rivers. So we will also talk about that a little bit later, where we have the development down here called Sumer, and then the long idea of the Fertile Crescent. But again, Euphrates on the left, Tigris on the right, Mesopotamia in the middle. As we move on over here, this is the Indus River, and where India will develop. And then this top river with the hump, think Honghe. You got the H thing going there, so that might help you. And this is China. To kind of give you more of a better idea, take a look at here. I got some color in this for you, so that shall work as well. As we continue on, when we look at the river valleys, again, we kind of are repeating ourselves how the silt or the rich topsoil is really good for farming. This comes to the river valleys because of flooding. Flooding happens in every river at some point in time, some more than others, depending upon the rainfall and the amount of snow in the winter. But there are some civilizations that actually based their calendar on the amount of flooding, one of them being Egypt, and they were able to get a 365-day calendar out of that. Another thing is irrigation. Irrigation and the aspect of the early river valleys was a man-made ditch that connected to the river. And in doing so, that allowed more land to be watered and fertile in regards to farming. So both of those together, and I'm sorry for the little place that's here. I'm going to try and move it for us. There we go. Get over there, buddy. Um, it allows a surplus. And this word here, surplus, please make sure you understand what that word means. That word surplus means more than enough. So when we look at these crops, these river valleys, and the crops that they grew, because they had more than enough, what this does, this allows the civilization to flourish and to grow. Here's a modern day example of irrigation in the farm. You see the water here in this canal. The pipes coming out of it are basically like long straws, if you will. And on the other end is a pump that brings the water through the straws, watering the crops and making sure that the the land is fertile. So with this, I'm gonna see if I can get interesting tool here. I do. Let's see if this works. All right. So this area in the green that I'm going to try and trace as best as I can. This is the Fertile Crescent. Okay. So from here to here, and then from here up, hey, not too bad, and down and around to there. All right, so that's the Fertile Crescent. You have your three rivers. You have your two primary rivers. You have the Euphrates here, and then you have the Tigris over here. And then this one is a new one that we haven't really discussed much about. But this one here is the Jordan River Valley. J for Jordan. All right. And so that allows this region over here to be a part of the Fertile Crescent, which allowed this area to be fertile. Because again, Mediterranean Sea is here. You have the Persian Gulf over here. Those are saltwater bodies of water, and those are not good for farming. So the freshwater in the Jordan, the Euphrates, and Tigris allow this to be fertile. All right, I'm gonna go back to my little pin guy. All right, so this area that I'm drawing in now, I'm gonna try my best. That's kind of ugly. That's all right. We'll make it work. So the red is Mesopotamia. Okay, the red in here is Mesopotamia. We'll talk a lot about that here with this next few sections. And then this region here in the orange, that is Sumer, Sumer. Not summer, but Sumer. So, and what's going to happen here is you're going to have a lot of city-states, and we'll talk about city-states here in a little bit. But city-states are the area or a city and that rules the area around it. And so, what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of city-states in Sumer. You're going to have some city-states throughout the Mesopotamia region, and then you have a few down here along the Jordan River. So again, it's a pretty interesting civilization. It's one of the oldest civilizations. I'm going to go here and clear the board now so we can move on. This is a pretty cool little feature. This is new this year. So let me go back. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right. So that is the Fertile Crescent, and hopefully you were able to go and square that away. So on this map, as I mentioned, all these little black dots are individual city-states. So as you can see, there's a lot of them down here in Sumer. You have some up here in Mesopotamia, and then you have some along the coast and down through where the Jordan River Valley is. So if you think about this, if each of these city-states had farms and had resources, opposed to somewhere up through here. Because there's more city states, what do you think is going to happen? You think they're going to be fine with trading and sharing? You think everything's going to be all kumbaya, holding hands? Probably not. So, what we need to understand is that in this region, we're going to have a lot of conflict. And even throughout the the Fertile Crescent, even over here by the Mediterranean coast, we will have conflict because of the lack or limited amount of resources, because there's so many city states there. So that's going to end part one. I appreciate you listening and following along, and stay tuned for part two, the other early groups of the river valley systems. Thank you, and be safe.